Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weave from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after what I thought was not perfect, but a very, very, very good response game for the Winnipeg Jets. Coming into this game, we all know what happened in the last game, playing the last-place team in the league. They won the game. I've made it clear on this program, I'm not very happy with those kind of wins from the Winnipeg Jets. Their coach made that very clear to the team as well. He said it today. He challenged this team after that game. He challenged them to be better and do better than what they had done in that previous game. And I thought that they absolutely rose to the challenge. Here's the deal. If you're Rick Bowness and you go and you watch your team the previous game go against the 32nd place team in the league and get outshot 17-7 in the first period and go down 2-0, almost go down 3-0 in a game like that, and you're not happy with, there's certain things that you want to see in the next game. The first is a good start. And no doubt, Rick Bowness had challenged the Winnipeg Jets to come out to find a better start, a problem that has plagued this team a little bit this year, but entirely through the last number of years. It's been a problem for this team. I'm not saying the problem is solved, but he got that start that he was looking for tonight. Second thing you want to see in a response game after that, especially a game in which I thought, and I think the numbers bear it out, that it was the depth players that dug the Winnipeg Jets out of their hole in the last game. I wanted to, if I'm Rick Bowness, I want to see my star players go out and put an impact on that game. That is absolutely what happened in this game. Mark Scheifele goes out and had a game where he looked highly motivated. Kyle Connor comes out and pops a couple of goals, sets Mark Scheifele up with just a perfect assist on the fourth goal of the game. Love that. I guess that brings me to my next point. The last thing I think that I want to see, and I know that this is starting to be, it's not a distant memory, but it's a memory. Those, blown leads that we saw against the Carolina Hurricanes and against the Dallas Stars. I think if you're Rick Bowness, you want to see, okay, we got our start tonight, check. We got our stars going, check. What I want to see after that is I want to see us close out this game the right way. And so I think a very important moment in this game is when the Florida Panthers come out and score that goal in the third period. I think it's around the 10:30 mark or something like that. I want to see that my team doesn't panic in that situation, comes out, gets back to the basics of the game, and absolutely shuts things down. I think that's what they did. Another thing that was really important in all of this, if you think about, maybe the confidence level of a team, in the fact that they've given up some of these leads at 6-on-5. Well, the Florida Panthers pulled their goalie, and it was almost instantaneous at the Winnipeg Jets turned the puck over, sent it up ice, gave it to Adam Lowry, and it was in the back of the net. That's one of those plays where if you're a fan and you weren't necessarily paying attention, or you bent over to pick up the Twizzler that you dropped in below your seat, because you know what? It's not the worst thing to take a Twizzler off the floor and eat it. It's not the biggest deal in the world. But if you happen to do that, you may have even missed that the goaltender left the net and that Adam Lowry had a wide open net. It's that quickly that it happened. If I'm Rick Bowness, I walk away from this game and I say, I challenged my players. I gave them a bunch of boxes to tick, and I think they ticked almost every single box with the victory that night. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why your Winnipeg Jets are currently first in the Central Division. Yeah, tied for first, but they've got the tiebreaker against the Dallas Stars, and they've got 2 games in hand. Your Winnipeg Jets are absolutely flying. And this line, I absolutely love it. I love the mindset. I love the way that you say things like this to your team and you keep pushing. But Rick Bowness, in his post-game availability, said, listen, you can either fight for your life or you can fight for first place. It's a choice to be made. I think that mindset has the Winnipeg Jets thinking, listen, if we're going to go out and have to throw everything out there, we might as well do it at the top of the division rather than duking it out for the wild card spot or for 8th place like we spent last year and a couple of the years before that. So once again, I just think I'm bringing this up on every show. I'm bringing it up like I bring up our sponsors at the end of every show. It's that consistent, but Rick Bowness's thumbprints are all over this team, and every single day I think we learn a little bit something more about how he's challenged and pushes this team, and I think we see for the most part those challenges are accepted and responded to. That's what I think. Not sure what you think. Let me know. But the other guy I want to know what this all means is our main man, Kenny, the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, I'm going to tell you something. I'm getting sick and tired of all the pushback that I get from this chat room here. I bring my ideas in here. People are always pushing back, and I'm surprised I'm getting pushback on this. So I ask you this: have you ever eaten a Twizzler off the floor that you dropped? Oh, your mic is not working, Ken. Not working. I'm going to let you work on that a little bit, and then I'm just going to give a little bit of a shout out to our people at Vittorio Rossi. I was overseeing Frank and the boys today, went and checked out with them. I picked up 4 brand new suits that I'm going to go and I'm going to check out. You're going to see me unveil them over the days. They gave me all the tie combinations, all the shirts, everything like that. I take pictures when I'm there because otherwise I go home and the ties get swallowed up in the tie drawer, and it's like I don't know what to put with what. So I keep a little Bible that they keep going for me, so I know exactly what is going on in that situation. But went over and saw the boys, Frankie and the boys at Vittorio Rossi, looking great as usual. Kenny's the guy who's got that classic look lately. I think it's a classic look he's got from Frankie and the boys. This is another one of their pieces. Nice and smooth. Love it. You're back finally, Ken. I want to give one.
If you actually turn the microphone on,
that helps. That helps. I think we ran into that the first day. Let me just finish giving a shout out to Frank and the boys. Head on down to Corridon Avenue. Go see Frank and the boys. I've been trying to get them, Ken, to come out to an event with us. I know that we've got the Christmas party happening on December 18th. That's sold out. Our next event at TransCanada Brewing, next live event, is going to be on the 21st of January. I'm trying to convince Frank and the boys to come down, have a drink or two with us, because this is just a perfect opportunity, I think, for us to get together with everyone in the Kenny and Renny community. That's going to be great. But I ask you again, Ken, I'm blown away by the pushback. Who hasn't eaten the Twizzler off the floor? What's going on?
It depends which floor, my man. Depends on where you're having it. If it's in the house on a 5-second. I also know that I do a lot of the vacuuming at the house, so I don't mind doing it off the floor at my own house. Not quite sure, depending on the area. So, like I said, I love this. This is a great wake up for the microphone. You're right. The look of fear on my face when I notice the microphone is not working. Also, not optimal, but we want to show off our great Christmas presents to ourselves, right. Sean. These microphones are fantastic, but technical difficulties have been part of the brand since the very beginning. So, not a surprise that we're still working through a few of the technical difficulties here. Anyways, on to the bigger and brighter things.
One of the other things that we try to do is give a little peek behind the scenes, and I'm going to give a little peek behind the scenes here, Ken, and throw you under the bus in the process, because everyone knows I love throwing Kenny under the bus. This is why I always ask you to show up before the show so we can check the mic. I say, get in the show so we can check your mic and make sure it's working.
Sean, I'm going to have to tell you right now.
Come here.
I was responsible for the Rick bonus part of the quotes. As you know, you had to wait patiently for me, Sean. And yes. When I sent it, somehow the quotes vanished into thin air, and Scott Billick was stuck taking care of the rest of those quotes. So stick taps to Scott Billick here. So that's why I didn't get in for the test of the microphone, but we're here now, and
we're here.
Let's get after it. Let's go, lamplighter. Let's go.
Let's go. Lamplighter. You do the lamplighter. You do the lamplighter.
Let's go. Some great options once again. Honorable mention to Pierre-Luc Dubois for picking up the Josh Morrissey shot pass and finding Mark Scheifele for his first. But my lamplighter is the Mark Scheifele second goal of the game. The one that saw him convert a beautiful pass from Kyle Connor. That thing started with the Nate Schmidt pass to Kyle Connor, a zone entry, a pass to Pierre-Luc Dubois, pass to Nate Schmidt, over to Kyle Connor, over to Mark Scheifele in front for the one-timer for the 15th goal of the season for Mark Scheifele. Absolutely awesome puck movement. That was also a power play marker, as there were 2 seconds left in that minor penalty on the play, and the Jets converting with the late power play goal. It wasn't even, Rick Bowness had already kind of not conceded that the power play was over, but he went to the 2 defenseman set, I believe with Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon on that play. He fired Pierre-Luc Dubois on the old power hour type shift with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. Dubois doing a nice job on that conversion, and boy, oh boy, what an effort from Connor to Mark Scheifele. I mean, we're going to dig into Scheifele almost immediately here, but that for me, Sean, that was my lamplighter of the game, in a game that had some impressive goals scored by the Winnipeg Jets.
A good pick, as always, Ken. And if you want to share your lamplighter with us, you should, because if you do, you enter yourself for a chance to win an 8-pack of frosty, delicious lamplighter amber ale from the Transcanada Brewing Company. All you got to do is tell us what your goal of the game was, your lamplighter of the game. People have been doing a great job with this, and you are entered to win an 8-pack of frosty, delicious Transcanada Brewing Company lamplighter ale. If you can't wait for us to hand that out to you, just head on down to Transcanada Brewing Company. Go to their tap room. It's gorgeous. I was there today. It is awesome. Go to 1290 Kenniston. And you know someone who doesn't have to wait for their frosty, delicious 8-pack of amber ale? I just had his name up on the screen. I'm glad to see that Roy Mack is here, because Roy Mack is the winner of the frosty, delicious 8-pack of lamplighter amber ale. All you got to do is get a hold of me at SN Sean Reynolds, direct message me, or one of my other socials, doesn't matter which one, just direct message me. I need your full name, Roy Mack, if that is your real name, and an email for me to send that to you, and we will get that along your way. I gotta say, Lynn Reimer won last time, and she gifted it to her brother, and I just wish I had the kind of relationship with my siblings, Ken, that someone would just drop an 8-pack of lamplighter amber ale in my lap. I will say I was down there today, Ken. They've got these holiday packs. Picked one up for you. I've got another one. It's gonna be a home game next time, so I'm gonna show off the pack. It's great, really nice. Two of them, Ken. Two of the beers are 9%, because some of us need a little help getting through the holidays, and Transcanada Brewing is here to help you do that. Let's move on and go to the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game, Ken.
Yeah, you know what? You sort of loosely referenced it early in the broadcast in your quick soliloquy. My We've Got You Covered play of the game is the chip off the glass by Dylan Samberg to free up Adam Lowry for the empty netter. So we're not talking about any 6-on-5 goals allowed for a Winnipeg Jets team who not so long ago was having a little bit of difficulty. Sergei Bobrovsky exited the net. And again, it's just a simple play. Chip off the glass. Adam Lowry gets inside position on his man, fires it into the empty net with 3:01 to play, and it puts the game out of reach. There will be no comeback. There will be no mayhem late in the game where there are 1, 2, or 3 goals allowed. Jets just stabilize quickly. And again, simple play, but an important one for a young player. And Sean, again, you said it the other day on Sunday after the unfortunate error for Samberg when he tried to drag and shoot across the middle. Brett Leeson gets the breakaway. It didn't get him down. It didn't shake his confidence whatsoever. He's playing with confidence. Sure, there was an interference minor. I mean, it was a kind of a, whatever, one of those plays. It had to be called, but I don't think that's not the kind of penalty that gets you into any trouble with the coaching staff. It's not the kind of penalty that gets you in position to potentially be replaced in the lineup. I like the play by Samberg and the finish by Adam Lowry, who's now up to 5 goals. That's a cookie for Lowry. I thought the Lowry line was excellent again today in terms of their checking responsibilities with Barron and Menelainen. He's up to 5 goals, and like I said, that is our We've Got You Covered play of the game, sponsored by our friends at the Johnston Group.
Awesome stuff. The Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston Group. You won't find 2 businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits, proudly administered by our friends at Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable, so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. And of course, like always, the Johnston Group has you covered, kind of like these mics have us covered, Ken. It reminds me of a couple shows ago. I remember I thought this was a pretty funny moment. A guy from the cleaning crew cleaning crew came, walked up right behind the computer here, and just started yelling across the arena to someone. And I had to be like, hold on a second, excuse me here. It's kind of happening right now, but these mics got us covered in this situation. I love to see it. Great Christmas present, Ken. I love you, buddy. It's good stuff. Okay, we need to move on. Let's move on to Mark Scheifele, because this struck me as a little bit of a Mark Scheifele revenge game. Now, I don't know if you feel the same. I've got my thoughts on it, but it felt like there was something about this.
First.
Okay,
I insist.
From every point. So I noticed in during the first intermission on Twitter, people were starting to talk about, I can't remember specifically what was said, but they were talking about Mark Scheifele and maybe the idea that he was not the biggest Paul Maurice fan is how it was being framed. And I was trying to figure out what had been said or if there was something that happened. I did notice that, I think you noticed this, Ken, when Paul Maurice and Jamie Compound were getting the shout out from the crowd and they put their arms around each other and they were waving to everybody. At one point, he looks to center ice and he points and he gives a point and a head nod. Well, that was to former captain Blake Wheeler. And so Blake had gone up to center ice to kind of acknowledge him. And when I looked on the bench to see where Mark Scheifele was, because I think those are the two guys more than anybody else that I think that we kind of associate with Paul Maurice's tenure. I don't know about you, maybe Josh Morrissey we could throw in there as well, but I think those are the two main figures ahead of like a Kyle Connor and so on and so forth. And what I noticed was Mark Scheifele was sitting on the bench and he was either tying away at his skate or something was going on, but he had his back entirely turned to the Panthers bench. And I'm not saying that was a snub, but there was definitely no way that Mark Scheifele was jumping out and like kind of throwing his hands up and kind of celebrating along with the crowd. And it kind of went along with the theme of the day for him. I mean, we talked to him earlier on, and I don't know what you thought about this, but I asked him, I don't know if I asked the first question. I know I asked the second one, but someone asked what kind of reception he thought that Paul Maurice was going to get. And he kind of said, well, that's not up to me. That's up to the fans, blah, blah. I didn't really answer the question. And I responded and I said, well, Mark, what kind of response do you think he should get? And he basically said, I don't know. It's not up to me. And basically answered it the same way. But there's no doubt about it in my mind, Ken. Mark went out of his way to not say, Paul Maurice should be, get a hero's welcome or a standing ovation or people should be very happy or whatever. He seemed to me to go out of his way to avoid the topic. And it felt icy to me. It felt really icy. And I thought what I saw from Mark Scheifele here in this game was a player who was committed to a little bit of a revenge game. That's what I saw. I don't know if you see the same thing, but I thought Mark Scheifele was out to prove something. He admitted as much in the post game. And once again, when he was asked, and I think it was you who asked him about Paul Maurice and the acknowledgement from the crowd, again, there was just a very kind of absence of him kind of giving his own tribute to Paul Maurice. But one thing in the entire day that he was able to do was turn questions about Maurice to the present and how appreciative he is of the Rick Bowness structure that has been put in, the Rick Bowness investment in making this team a better team, the Rick Bowness investment in really pushing this team. I thought through the process of admission for his new coach and kind of avoiding talking about his ex-coach, Mark Scheifele really kind of showed that he had one in for Paul Maurice tonight, and I think he pulled that off.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, Mark Scheifele was not feeling sentimental. Let's just put it that way. I would say, it's more about what Mark didn't say than what he did say, and I think that's kind of what you were actually saying, Sean. Mark Scheifele's favorite football player is Tom Brady. This had very much of a Bill Belichick, Tom Brady breakup kind of feeling.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing that we didn't see was Mark Scheifele on the flyby after his first goal, staring directly at Paul Maurice on the Panthers bench and giving him a let's go, for lack of a better term. I think it's been pretty clear that, at least, looking between the lines, and sometimes our job is to read between the lines. It didn't end well with Mark and and Paul Maurice, and I think it's probably a two-way street. It's not just Mark that was disappointed with Paul at the end. I think Paul was probably also disappointed in Mark at the end.
Yep.
And thus, I think that Mark got to the point where he was ready to be coached. He said that on several occasions. He wants to be pushed, he wants to be challenged, and he wants to be coached. I would also maybe counter by saying I think that Paul Maurice probably wanted Mark to be playing as committed a style of game that Mark is currently playing for Rick Bowness, even though maybe he didn't go about asking him the same way that maybe Rick Bowness did. But again, that's speculative on our parts. But based on Mark's comments, that seems to be how he feels about it. I do think that Rick has opened his eyes, but I also think there's going to come. Again, I follow the Patriots closely. I've been a Tom Brady fan for a long time. I am a fan of how, do your job, that whole mentality that the Patriots use. I also think there is going to come a time down the road, much like it will for Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, that Mark Scheifele will look back at the way the relationship started with Paul Maurice. Paul had a big influence on his career as he broke into the NHL as a full-time player. He helped unlock some of his talent, and now he's trying to take that talent to the next level. So I just don't think that reconciliation, or whatever way you want to put it, was going to be happening this evening or today or any time in this season. But what we did see was admiration from former captain Blake Wheeler. He talked about how Paul set a new standard and helped the team reach their biggest successes. So not surprised that he took that tenor and tone, and not surprised that Mark had no interest in being sentimental or praising his former coach either. But the biggest thing for the Jets is that Mark Scheifele continues to play a committed game. I mean, not only did we see him score 2 goals to get him to 15 on the season, we saw him below the goal line on several occasions, cleaning up some of the messes behind, not messes, but the loose change when it came to D-to-D plays. And you saw him being committed down low, and you saw him on the back check. All things that, the Jets coaching staff has wanted and asked of Mark Scheifele, he's been able to deliver. We talked on our hit about Rick Bowness constantly pushing his players for more. Well, one of the first things Mark Scheifele said after praising his line mates for making great passes? He was disappointed he didn't fill the hat and finish the hat trick on the one-timer chance he had. So that's Mark wanting to get himself back into the discussion of being one of the, top whatever number you want to use centerman in the NHL. It's important to Mark Scheifele. He is showing that commitment on a number of levels, and he's been rewarded for it on the ice. I mean, 15 goals in 24 games it is today, Sean? I mean, that's an impressive, so it might be 25. Either way, it's an impressive number, and Mark has done a fabulous job, and those assist totals are starting to climb a little bit. And, Mark deserves credit for how he's playing, because outside of Connor Hellebuyck, he needed to be one of the Jets' best players this year, and he has been in that discussion. And it doesn't mean he's not leading the team in scoring, but it's the other things he's doing while not sacrificing a lot of offense that have made him a better player. He's not giving up nearly as much as he was in prior seasons. He has said that's part of the reason is because he's being pushed. And, we talked so much about Rick Bowness unlocking Josh Morrissey's offensive potential. Rick Bowness also deserves some credit for helping Mark Scheifele find a different place where he is comfortable in both ends of the ice. He continues to work on all aspects of his game, but his shoot-first mentality, he's always been a quality over quantity player, but he's scoring from, outstanding spots, and I think he's still looking for a shot a little bit more as well. And, he deserves credit for that. And I mean, let's not kid ourselves. That first conversation that Mark Scheifele had with Rick Bowness was going to be an essential one, and we don't know the full contents of that conversation, but it's pretty clear with Mark Scheifele's play that Rick Bowness was able to have a message that resonated with Mark Scheifele. And I can only speculate that it included, I need this from you, and this is how we're going to get you back to being the player. Much like Rick Bowness said to Josh Morrissey, I want you to be in the top 10 discussion for the Norris Trophy. I'm not saying he said the same thing to Mark Scheifele when it came to being in the Hart Trophy discussion, but he told him how important it was for him to be a committed two-way player, and Mark has been that in the early going in this season. And it's not just, Johnny come lately. This is now a 24-25 game block where Scheifele has been excellent throughout the majority of that block.
The one thing, Ken, I think there's a ton of stories in this. It's like, it would be really interesting to go to every player on this team and go through what that first phone call that they had with Rick Bowness was. Because it's funny because I've got to talking, when I go out and I talk with like friends or family or, Jets fans I run into, and you go back and you talk about that conversation that Josh Morrissey had with Rick Bowness, and just like the fact that Josh Morrissey gets off the phone, that first phone call, and just absolutely is like ready to go. Like, can the season start now? He's just pumped up. And I just wonder, I bet you every guy on this team has a story about that first phone call. And I would just like to get an idea from all of them about like how it affected them, how it maybe gave themselves a different perspective of themselves as a player. I think it would be a real interesting one. But I digress. I want to go back because we started talking about the one side of the comments that we heard from. You touched on Blake Wheeler. Thank you for doing that. And Mark Scheifele talking about the return of Paul Maurice. We also had a chance to talk to Paul Maurice earlier today. I want to get into that. I want to talk a little bit about Paul. I want to talk a little bit about where the Florida Panthers are, because clearly that was an interesting topic for Winnipeg Jets fans on this night. But first, I want you to give your main man, Lou Ferlin, a shout out.
You bet. For all the folks watching live on YouTube and those checking out things on the podcast later on, if you're in the market, the real estate market, if you're buying, you're looking to buy, if you're looking to sell, if you're looking to just check out what the market is doing right now, you can contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty. You can reach him at 204-791-9971 or 204-989-5000 at the office. It's Lou at louferlin.ca, and his website is www.louferlin.ca. That's LOUFURLAN.ca. Helping you is what we do is the slogan our main man goes with, and he's a great promoter of amateur athletics in our community, and just an all-around great human to go along with his real estate prowess. So if you're in the market for any of those things we've mentioned, Lou is your guy.
Sweet Lou, as I like to call him. And you know what I love? I love that the old stats for Lou start coming out when he's brought up in the show. Let me see if I can find this here.
We got to verify. Sometimes I think
sometimes we have to verify. I don't know, but
Lou Ferlin is a Vanier Cup champion.
There you go. National champion Rob Mahoney says Lou recorded 12 interceptions as a safety for the 84 Bisons, also team captain all 4 seasons of his career. I don't know if that's we haven't fact-checked this. I'll tell you this, though. Lou, I don't think there's anything that Lou can't do. So even if he didn't do this, I think he could have if he wanted to. That's how much confidence I have in Lou. And we're going to hold off on the home field dig deeper comment of the game, because I think the chat room needs to dig deeper, Ken. They need to dig deeper than they've dug right now. We need more out of you, chat room. We need you to bring it. There's 369 people out there. Give us some likes, give us your comments, and we'll give you some digger deeper awards. Okay, let's go to Paul Maurice. You sat in on his press conference. It was a long one. What did you take away from it?
Yeah, I think that I love that Paul leaned into this. I mean, and I'm not, again, I've got no problem with how Rick Bowness dealt with his own, dealings when it came to facing the Stars for the first time here, and then, being in Dallas for the first time. He was not interested in dealing with the emotional component when he was asked by, a couple of Dallas beat writers saying that the focus is on the game and everything else. And I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with the fact that Paul Maurice leaned into it and answered my question about the emotions and seeing Bruce Cassidy go back to Boston, and saying that, yes, it was going to be emotional for him. He didn't separate the personal from the professional. This was a community that means an awful lot to him. It's where his family grew up. It's where, he spent 8 years of his career here, 8+ years, and he had a lot of successes, and he had a lot of things that he wished had gone differently. He was asked about regrets, and it's not surprising what he said. I mean, he basically intimated or hinted at this on the day he announced his resignation, that he wasn't feeling the same way. But the fact that he came out and said that he wished he had probably stepped away in the offseason, I think that was an important, thing to make public. I mean, because I think a lot of Jets fans had questions, and rightfully so, about the way he departed. And now they have their answer. And, again, that's not going to make everyone feel good about, the actual answer. But, I appreciate the fact that he, it sounded like he felt he owed an explanation, and he gave that explanation. Some people may not like the explanation, but at least it's out there publicly. He put it on the record, and I thought it was important for him to do that. I think the fact that, when I asked him the other question that I felt was important, when did he feel like he was ready to coach again? And let's make this clear. Paul wasn't looking to be a head coach again. He wasn't going to just take the first job that was offered to him. He had other opportunities to coach in other markets. But this one kind of, a lot of worlds collided. He got a phone call from Bill Zito kind of out of the blue. Earlier in the winter, his wife, Michelle, asked him if he was interested in anything. He said, yeah, this Panthers team kind of intrigues me. A couple months later, one of his sons got into Miami Law School. So they were considering moving there anyway. And when Bill Zito decided to make a move on Andrew Brunette, he became interested. So those are the things that kind of stood out to me. And, to me, Paul sounded like he was rejuvenated. And again, a lot of people are not, that's not enough for them. But Paul Maurice was burnt out. He took some time to get away from the game. Is it cherry picking when there aren't many times when the President's Trophy winner becomes available, that job becomes available. I don't blame him for taking it. It's not a slight on Winnipeg. He wasn't trying to, improve his situation, but he went to a situation where he felt he could make an impact, and he's gone to the Florida Panthers. And yeah, I mean, it has been a little bit of bumps in the road early. Paul said that was kind of expected going into the year. Their identity has changed with the big trade. Hubert Owen Weegar for Matthew Tkachuk, who was kind of all over the guts of the game. But I thought Paul handled himself well, acquitted himself well, and it was not surprising one bit to me that during the video and when the cameras found him on the bench, that he wrapped his arm around the shoulder of Jamie Compon and had a genuine and heartfelt thank you to the people that were standing and giving him a just ovation. And part of that was part of the other part of that equation that Blake Wheeler talked about, the standards. It's okay for Jets fans to acknowledge what Paul Maurice did, and it's also okay for them to close the chapter on that, or close the part of the chapter in that book and move on. They've obviously embraced Rick Bowness, as they should, but I think this was their chance for the fan base to salute Paul Maurice for the time he invested both with the community and with the organization. And I thought it was a nice moment. And then they went on and, got back to business. And, I don't know if it's closure or whatever else, but I think it was, a lot of folks felt there was just an abrupt ending, and it wasn't the ending that they were, looking for. So I think there was, a little bit of closure maybe on that front. But I think now, all parties will move forward, and, they've embraced a new head coach, as they should. The players have embraced it. Kyle Connor, although Mark Scheifele didn't want to get into it, obviously Kyle Connor saluted Maurice afterward as well. And I think this chapter of the book is kind of closed. And people, Paul flat out said it. He's cheering, he wasn't cheering for them tonight, but he hopes the Jets do well. This is a place that's always going to have a special, piece of his heart. And he was being very genuine in those comments. And, now they won't see the Jets till March, and it'll be interesting, Sean, to see where those two teams are at by the time things come around to March. Because right now the Jets are in a battle for first place, and the Panthers are in that other predicament where they're kind of in a battle for their playoff lives, even though it's only the second quarter of the season here.
Well, it's an interesting one. I didn't think that they looked very good tonight at all. And
look who they're missing, though.
Yeah, they're missing some people, no doubt. And you know what? It's interesting. I made a tweet earlier on that a lot of people took as me trying to troll Paul Maurice. uh, and I'd said something along the lines, and I truly believe this. Like the Florida Panthers came in here last year, and they were a buzzsaw. And they'd get the puck, they'd gain the zone, they wouldn't give the puck away easily, they wouldn't float it in on net like they did all night tonight. How many times did a Florida Panther gain the zone right down in the middle, get filtered into the middle by the Winnipeg Jets defense, and float one in on net? They'd get in and they'd hold on to that puck, and they were fast and they tired out opponents. We didn't see any of that tonight. You are right. Yeah, and when I said this, and I'm saying this right now, this Florida Panthers team to me was unrecognizable compared to what I saw from them last season when they were in this building and I saw them live. And I couched the comment by saying, yes, I know that there's that they have injuries that they're dealing with right now. That is most definitely part of what we're seeing from the Florida Panthers right now. Yes, you touched on it. They had a trade. They brought some new players in. I was vocal. I said it to you. I thought the Florida Panthers had one of the worst off seasons of any team in the NHL. Losing Mason Marchment, I thought was terrible. I thought losing Jonathan Huberdeau has kind of led to a problem for both the Calgary Flames and the Florida Panthers. In that, to your point, the switch of those two players, it's not like 105 points or whatever. They both were like around 110 point players. It's not 110 point player for 110 point player. It's two players with entirely different styles. And I really do think that the main driver of that offense for that team last year, outside of Barkov, and I still do think Huberdeau was greater, but Jonathan Huberdeau was the guy who drove that team offensively. And a guy who was getting a lot done for them was Mason Marchment as well. They moved out, and Mackenzie Weegar may have been their best defenseman. Like, I thought that they had an atrocious offseason. So that is clearly part of it. But the coaching is part of this too. There's no way you can look at this equation and see what has happened with the Florida Panthers and not think that Paul Maurice's stamp on this team has not been what I think they expect. And I'll say this, Paul Maurice talked about, and I'd asked him this question, when you inherit the President's Trophy winning team and you're where you find yourself now, what kind of pressure comes in that? And he'd said basically internally none, that the team expected to be here. I don't buy that for a second, Ken. I don't think for a second that this ownership group and that this general manager and the managerial group for the Florida Panthers thought that losing what they did or making the moves that they did would have put them outside of the playoff race, looking in the stratosphere of a team like the Montreal Canadiens. Like, think about this, people. The Montreal Canadiens were the last place team in the league. The Florida Panthers were the first place team in the league, and they're side by side right now. If the Montreal Canadiens pull off a victory against Seattle tonight, I believe they're tied in the standings. That is a ridiculous swing both ways for both of these teams, and I would say it's almost easier to be the Canadiens, who go from dead last to being a fringe, outside team that's around 11th or 10th place. It's almost easier to do that than it is to go from first all the way down. I don't buy that. I don't think that the Florida Panthers as a team right now are taking well to Paul Maurice's coaching style. I think that's part of the problem. At the beginning of the year, Ken, that you and I had this conversation. I was on the record early when they made that hire. I was blown away that they made that hire. The reason I was blown away by it is I saw the Florida Panthers as a team that had kind of everything ready to go to take the next step to try and win a Stanley Cup, right? They go out, they found regular season success. They had a little bit of success the year before when they had one of the best playoff series that we've seen in the last couple of years between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning 2 years ago. Last year was a walk for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think that has everything to do with the loss of John Quenneville. But I thought what the Florida Panthers needed was a coach, a proven coach, to take them over the top. And I'm sorry, but Paul Maurice's record has shown that he's never been that coach that's been able to take a team and put them over the top. So that's why I didn't like that hire. But I don't think, from what I've seen from this team and from what I saw from them here tonight, is an example of them taking well to the coaching change. I don't think it's happening there. Everything that I heard, Ken, from the people I've talked to within Florida suggests that they will stick with him this year regardless of whether they miss the playoffs or not. So it sounds like his job is safe for the season. I'd wondered if it would be. Sounds like it is. But the one point I wanted to end on here, Ken, I thought Paul Maurice was somewhat sheepish today in his press conference. He didn't strike me as the Paul Maurice that we usually talk to. He seemed quiet. He seemed reserved in a way. I thought that he was sheepish, and I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not surprised by that. I think Paul Maurice's admission when he was asked what he would do differently, and I think it was Kelly Moore from CJOB who asked that question. When asked what he would do, sorry, who was it?
It was Mike.
Sorry, it was Mike. It was Mike from the Free Press, asked what he would do differently, and he admitted that he would have left in the summertime. And I think that is an admission in itself of what we all know. Paul Maurice shouldn't have left halfway through the season last year. I truly believe that. I think a coach getting up and walking out of the room, while I think it was important for this franchise, and maybe we should give him credit for that, because I don't think, a lot of people come to me and they say, you can tell me, the real deal. Paul Maurice was about to get fired and he left early. That's nothing that I've heard, and I don't think that was the case. I completely and fully think he would have finished out the year I don't think he was getting fired by Kevin Cheveldayoff, and I'll tell you right now, I'm not sure he wouldn't be behind the bench right now if it had been up to Kevin Cheveldayoff. I don't know that he was getting forced out of town. So I do think in the end, and maybe I should give him credit for this, I do think the Jets are in a better spot today because Paul Maurice stepped away from the team, because I don't think the team would have forced him out. But it's still something I don't think you do. I remember him saying this is a good day when he walked out. I don't know how he can say that. I think what we're seeing from a player like Mark Scheifele, and I think there were certain players that were upset that he walked out and did that. I think they're still upset by that. I don't think it's a good thing. And I think his admission that if he could do it over again, he would have left in the summertime is an admission that that's not how you leave a hockey team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to draw a parallel here. I mean, it's maybe a little bit of I don't think it's a stretch. It's very similar to how Dustin Byfuglien left. You have this person who invested so much into the community and in the organization, and ultimately just decided to kind of walk away. Dustin Byfuglien did it as a player. Paul Maurice decided it was enough as a coach, and it took a long time for the Jets to recover from Dustin Byfuglien's decision and his absence. And the same things are kind of true. I mean, because of the grievance that Byfuglien filed, the Jets were never really able to replace him. And in a similar vein, I mean, the Jets were forced to put Dave Lowry in a very difficult position. One where he was coaching his son and, taking over midstream. And, again, Dave Lowry's not going to say no. I mean, it's rarely an optimal scenario when you get your first chance as a head coach. I mean, Paul Maurice took over from Paul Holmgren early in his season where he wasn't ready to become the head coach. And I'm not saying it's the same for Dave Lowry. I'm just saying it put the Jets in a very difficult position, and one they didn't really recover from. Long term, what Paul Maurice said is accurate. The Jets are in a better place than they were in December on the 17th. But they went through a lot of pain and misery before that was able to be the case. And they had to kind of find a coach that in some ways fell into their lap. So, it's interesting. I mean, people think, oh, well, anyways, I don't want to get into it. I think we've spent a lot of time
we've covered it. We've covered it.
I think it's important, and again, it's what I'm also saying is this: Paul Maurice gave a lot to this organization. It was also time for someone to take over. I mean, if Paul Maurice can see it, I mean, I guess it's kind of on us. Maybe we should have seen it also. But again,
it
was time for a new voice.
In fairness, the chat room had been seeing it for a long time, right?
For sure.
And Ken, you and I were we were on this and we talked about it, and we've both said this. Like, I'm not a columnist. It's not my job to say I think they should fire that guy. It's my job to throw out the facts and allow the audience to come to that conclusion. I don't pick up a flag and start running with a flag. If I do, I'm not doing my job. But someone earlier on here, someone in the chat room had said something along the lines of Paul Maurice being an ultimate schmoozer. I think it's kind of hilarious. And this is what I love about this show, Ken. You and I are constantly on the record with what we think about this team. And so I think it's funny when someone says, that I got schmoozed. And then in the same or the next comment, I've got 20 people in the chat room who say I'm always negative about this team. Well, the reason people think that is because for the last 2 years, I've been saying that things aren't working with the Winnipeg Jets and they need to do things differently. Like, read between the lines when I'm doing that. It's what I'm suggesting, not suggesting, but if I'm talking about a team that is not working the way it should be doing, you need to start reviewing why it's not happening like that. And the head coach has to be part of that. So, I mean, I'll say this. There's going to be people out there who will say you should have called for him to be fired a long time ago. And then there's people who are going to say every time you think things don't go right that you're being negative and crapping all over the team, right? I stand behind everything we've ever said on this show. Does that mean that we're right all the time? No, but you're getting an honest assessment from us all the time. And I can tell you this, I don't for a second feel like I was schmoozed by or duped by anyone into supporting a coach to stick around longer than maybe they should have. I think that I put my thoughts on what was happening out there. But again, I stand by that. If I go out and I'm waving a flag and saying the Winnipeg Jets should fire their coach or fire their general manager, do this, I'm not doing my job because I'm supposed to be an impartial journalist. I bring you the facts. It's like my tweet earlier on tonight. I said that about this team not looking as good, and everyone thought it as me taking a shot at Paul Maurice. It wasn't. I was saying, go take a look at the game tape from the Florida Panthers rolling in here last year versus this year. They're not even close to the same team. Is Paul Maurice part of that? You'd be crazy not to look at it based on him being the coach. You'd be crazy not to look at the personnel that came in and out. You'd be crazy not to look at the fact that they were on the road trip or their injuries or whatever. But I'm telling you what I'm seeing. You're getting an honest assessment from us either way. Anyways, we got to move on, Ken, and we got to move on to our home field dig deeper comment of the game. And we have that. It's ready to go. I got it queued. I really like this one. Helly's Kitchen says, was a little worried the new system would restrict the offensive prowess of our top six as they get more comfortable in the structure. It seems to be the exact opposite. I could not agree with this more, and I couldn't agree with it more for a big reason here, Ken. I had thought that what we saw, and I think Dallas is a good comparable. The Winnipeg Jets were a team that needed to get better defensively, but you're thinking maybe you're going to bring in a coach like Rick Bowness, who, let's be honest, Ken, we talk about head coaches moving here or there. Rick Bowness left Dallas, and there's a lot of fans there who were thinking of Rick Bowness. Good riddance. He makes us too defensive. He doesn't open things up offensively. Well, Rick Bowness has gone there, and look what's happening to Jason Robertson. That team is opening up offensively. So I had thought the Dallas Stars were a team that needed to open up offensively, and they had the defense covered. Pete DeBoer comes in. He's done a good job of them opening up offensively, no doubt about it. But, and I think this is a big but, Ken, that team gets scored on in a way they haven't been scored on in a long time, right? Like the Dallas Stars have been a grind for how many years, and they're becoming less and less of a grind to play against. I mean, they lose 4-0 to the Leafs tonight. I think the last time they played the Minnesota Wild, they get 5 goals scored on them by the Minnesota Wild. They're allowing goals now. So that balance, to the point that is being made here, the balance in that situation is they've opened up the offense, but the defense has opened up as well. Rick Bowness came rolling in here with the job of shutting things down defensively, and I think it's very right to worry that shutting things down defensively could mean a team full of offense that the Winnipeg Jets have would see things kind of, hunkering down a little bit. And I think a lot of people thought that's what we were seeing at the beginning of the year. Maybe that's what we were. Kyle Connor, like you'd said, gets out to a slow start. Mark Scheifele got there pretty well, but all of a sudden, there's 5 guys on this team now, Ken, that are hovering around or above the point per game mark. That's like 1/4 of your team at point per game. This team has found its offense. It's found its defense. What a balance they've struck. And that, for me, is why that comment is clearly far and away the home field dig deeper comment of the game. I asked for more from the chat room, and man, oh man, did I get it. Excellent comment there by Helly's Kitchen. Great job, Ken.
Yeah, and you can reach that's home field for marketing and more. You can reach them at myhomefield.ca. And yeah, just going to dig into that. And it's interesting. I mean, the Jets went from being in the bottom third in terms of goals for, right, until they had the 7-goal outburst against the Chicago Blackhawks. I think they were kind of right around 21st or 23rd in goals for per game. Then they had the eruption, and now they're kind of closer to the middle of the pack. But like you said, so Josh Morrissey, 27 points. He is one of those players above. Kyle Connor now up to 10 goals. He's the third player on the roster to hit double digits. He's up to 26 points. Pierre-Luc Dubois is a point-a-game player, 11 goals, 25 in 24 games. Blake Wheeler, 22 points in 24 games. And Mark Scheifele, with those 15 goals and 6 assists, is now up to 21 points in 24 games. Like that's an impressive number. And as we mentioned, I mean, Kyle Connor, his shooting percentage now is up to 11.6, but I mean, it was around 7% for a while. I mean, one of the reasons he wasn't scoring, he just wasn't having any puck luck around the net, and now he's just been absolutely
got
on
it tonight.
fire.
He got it tonight.
Yeah, well, he sure did. I mean, that first one, again,
that's not an NHL goal. Spencer Knight had an.
I do think
night.
It may have hit the defenseman's stick, but that's still from distance where you should have recovered. That you got to get your pad down and make that save. I mean, again, we talked about the passing play and the nice forecheck by Connor, by Mikey Eastmont. Pierre-Luc Dubois made a nice play to get it over to Connor, and then the wickets just kind of opened wide on Spencer Knight. The 5-hole was wide open, and you saw a goal scorer scoring a goal that, again, most goaltenders will want to say they should have had that, but Kyle Connor's got one of the best releases in the NHL, so he doesn't need to apologize for beating a goaltender through the 5-hole. Another impressive goal by him. And you know what? I need to switch gears here. I know we only have about 8 minutes left here. I've been a little down on the play of Neil Pionk this year, Sean. Again, I'm not ripping him, but I don't think that his play has been up to the standard that he set for himself during those first 2 years with the Jets. I thought today was one of Neil Pionk's best games of the season, and I love the compete. It was a lot of nothing to do with points. I thought that Neil Pionk had done an excellent job on the penalty kill. He broke up a couple of nice plays. He got involved in a spirited scrap with Nick Cousins. That edge that we were used to seeing Neil Pionk play with was back today, and I thought he was moving the puck well. I thought we've been noticing his skating wasn't kind of at the standard that we've seen from Neil Pionk, leading many to believe that maybe he was banged up a bit. I thought he was moving better on the weekend games. I thought it was one of his best games that he played of the season today. I thought he was very involved, and that is what the Jets need from Neil Pionk. He needs to be one of their best defensemen. Right now, Josh Morrissey is the clear-cut number one. They need Neil Pionk to be playing like a number two defenseman, and he's done a nice job. I thought he was excellent today on that front, and it's important for him to do that.
Sorry, I just thought this was a hilarious comment. Is Sean a middle child? I like you, Sean. Really, I don't know what started this comment, but there's two of us, and I'm the second one. Unless something happened out there, and I'm going to get a late life surprise. I am not a middle child. If I'm acting like one, I don't know how. But there we go.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean?
I don't know what it means. I think I don't know.
Please dig into that.
I think I know what it means.
PDX
I think I know what it means. I think middle children are starved for attention, Ken. Isn't that how it goes? Everyone, I know as a parent that I hear this all the time when I talk to parents. They'll say like they have the first one, then they have the second one, and then they're like, well, we can't have another one because we can't do that to the youngest one because they'd never survive as a middle child. I know our neighbors had that conversation. So yes. I'm here and I'm doing this not because I like hockey. Ken's kind of okay, but I'm here starved for your attention. So bring it as much as you can. I need your likes. I need your comments. And you know what I think this show needs right now? A little more attention for me. We need to make this a Sean's Headband version of the Kenny Renny Show. Let's do it. I like this from Scotty. The
great
show needs
tune.
more troglodyte. It is a great tune. Hey, by the way, I've got one of the viewers trying to help me make that my ringtone. I'm closer to it. This has been like a 3-week project. I'm closer to it. I'm going to get at it here. We should talk a little bit more about Kyle Connor before we shut this thing down, because like you touched on it a little bit here. I want you to dig deeper. I'm hungry for your thoughts on this, Ken, because you touched a little bit on it on our chat that's up on Sportsnet right now. Just the idea of like Kyle Connor getting the slow start. I talked with him. We were talking with him, and I'd asked him the question about, because, remember Patrick Laine used to have fun with the, I don't want an assist, I like scoring goals. And Kyle Connor has always been a guy who looks to me like he thrives off scoring goals, likes to get into the quiet areas, likes to do that more often. But I would say about him, and I don't think enough people give Patrick Laine credit for this, that last year before he left, when Blake Wheeler got injured and they put him on a line with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, he became more of an assist man. He kind of deferred to Kyle Connor as the scorer on that line, and I think that took a lot of maturity for a young man. I thought it showed a lot of him rounding out his game, and I don't think Patrick Laine got a lot of credit for that. I thought at a time where everyone said, well, he's not scoring the way he used to, his game's going down, his points per game were actually going up. He was getting to be a better, more complete, more rounded player. He was just so well known for scoring that he wasn't getting the credit I thought that he deserved. Well, I kind of feel like the quietness of Kyle Connor's game this year has been the same thing. I mean, this is a guy I think a lot of us thought would be challenging for the Rocket Richard Trophy. Hasn't turned out that way so far. And yet here he is right behind Josh Morrissey for the leading goals point producer on this team, where he did that last season as well. I think it shows a lot of maturity out of Kyle Connor, that, to your point, the puck just wasn't going in for him, but he just kept going with this team, setting guys up, and is right there near the top of this team in scoring, in spite of the fact that the puck's bounces have not gone his way.
I love the stick-to-itiveness. I know that's not even not necessarily a word, but we're going to make it a hyphenated word for the purposes of this show. And if it's not a word, it should be added as a word to Webster's or whatever dictionaries we are using these days. I loved what we saw from Kyle Connor because, he's a sniper. And when goals aren't going for a sniper, sometimes snipers go quietly into the night. They go to a perimeter game. What we saw from Kyle Connor was a diversifying when it came to his offensive punch. So the one-timer's not going on the power play because they're taking it away. He goes somewhere else to find. He gets to the net, going for tip-ins. He's going to the back door, going, not just relying on scoring off the rush. You see a lot of cutbacks in his game these days, showing his patience. But, Sean, I'm with you. His ability to pass the puck has always been an underrated skill for him. It's not just like he suddenly became a good passer. He was always a good passer. It just nowadays others are converting those passes at a higher rate, I think. Yes, he wasn't scoring at the same rate earlier, but, he's quietly putting together a really impressive season. I mean, he had 93 points last year to go along with those 47 goals, so he's always been able to produce a little bit of offense outside of just scoring goals. But he's doing a ton of his damage at 5-on-5 this year. And if the Jets want to go on a playoff run, first they have to make the playoffs. But if they want to go on a playoff run, they need Kyle Connor to go to the hard areas. He's going to the hard areas with regularity, and that's where he's going to score goals when it matters most. So to me, I think it's impressive because it's easy for guys to get bogged down and to look at the stats sheet and say, oh, well, my shooting percentage is down, ho-hum, it'll just come. No, what we saw from Kyle Connor, he was working constantly at his shot and trying to bust through. Today, 6 shots on goal, 9 attempts. You want to rack up numbers? Mark Scheifele is a quality over quantity. Kyle Connor, he gets a ton of opportunities, and because of his quick release and the shot that he brings to the table, he's able to score in bunches, and he's starting to do that with a lot more regularity. And that's a dangerous thing for opposing teams because when Kyle Connor goes on a heater, he can be one of the most dangerous scorers in the NHL. But he's not just a one-dimensional player. He is able to find his teammates. And Sean, we went 59 minutes here without talking about the fact that Pierre-Luc Dubois had another 3-assist game. Three primary assists on a night where he and Kyle Connor continue to show that chemistry that we saw so often last year. It was also on display again this evening in that 5-2 victory over the Florida Panthers.
Before we close this out, I want to address something here. Ryan Friesen is going on and on and on about the Avs. Here he'd said, I know he's been characterizing, and Ryan clearly loves to put words in my mouth about the Colorado Avalanche. I think if I remember distinctly what I said the Avs are coming. And that's what I'd said about it. Ryan also got into our.
They were 7-2, so they were actually coming in the standings.
Yeah. Now hold on a sec. I've got all the time in the world, and believe me, I love it when people challenge our takes. I have no problem with Ryan leaving 2,000 comments about the Avs in the chat room. We get paid by the comments, so you're making me money. I appreciate it, Ryan. I'll say this: if I remember correctly, I said the Avs are coming. Ryan also jumped in to tell me something about to educate me. He did something about the Avs not suffering much in the way of 5 of their top 6 are out right now. So listen, Ryan, I'm going to say this right now. I still think the Avs are coming. I think that once they get healthy, they're going to be the biggest concern for the Winnipeg Jets. You can write that down. In fact, if you want, you can say it into the chat room another 2,000 times a game. Go at it. But I will say this, and I wanted to touch on this. You made a comment earlier on where you said "F you" to someone in the chat room, and I know a couple times you've hopped in and you've called me stupid before on this show. I'll say this: we have a standard in the chat room. If you had said this about my boy Ken here or anyone else in the chat room, you would have been gone a long time ago. I let it slide because I thought that maybe if we gave you some time and you saw how people conducted themselves here, you'd be able to figure it out. It seems sometimes you're not able to. I'm putting you on warning here. No abusive content. Continue, please. We love it. Continue with your Avs takes. Continue going at me. You got to be able to do it respectfully or you're gone, though. And there was another comment earlier on. Maul, I know what's going on here, and you're kind of getting into it with Scotty. And Scotty, I know that you're pushing back. Guys, we don't want to see people saying rude or stuff to each other. I know everyone's kind of going at each other. I guess what I'm saying is this is just an overall reminder. Kenny and Renny's chat room and this show is a safe space. We respect each other. We treat each other with respect. Our comments reflect that, and that's what we're going to go do going forward. Okay. Peace all around. That's what I'm asking for. That's what I'm hoping for. And that's what we're going to have one way or another. Okay. Anyways, see, here we go. Get back to this, Ryan. This is the kind of stuff. This is the quality content everyone's showed up for. It's respectful. It's good. Challenge me from here right until the very end of the season. I'm expecting it. And that's the way it should be. Other than that, Ken, great job here tonight. Really here. There we go. This is what I'm talking about. Maul comes back. I'm sorry, Scott. I love you. This is what I want to see. This is the quality content I'm here for. And I wanted to show this out because I didn't say anything. I know the chat room handled it earlier, but T Will, someone who's on the show all the time, and Ken, who we are going to see at the TCB tap room on December 18th, because he's one of the people who got tickets for the live show there. Sounds like he had a rough day. I hope you're listening to this later, T. Will, and I hope you know we're thinking about you, buddy. A shout out to you. Hopefully things get better for you out there. Ken, great job here. If everyone here appreciates the conversations that are happening in these spaces, please appreciate our sponsors because they make sure that these conversations stay going in these spaces for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, the Trans-Canada Brewing Company, Johnston Group, Lou Ferlin, and Home Field. Thank you so much to them. And as always, thank you for the chat room. Thank you for your time, for your attention, for your comments, everything. You're the best. We're nothing without you. So thank you so much. We will see you after the next game against the St. Louis Blues.